And now a little story from the apple seed.
Once there was a widowed king who had 3 daughters. As he was getting on in years, he decided that it would be best to step down from the throne and leave the affairs and cares of state in younger and more capable hands. And so it was, after supper one night, he called his 3 daughters into the throne room. There on a table was a map of the entire kingdom with lines denoting 3 different sections. One parcel of the country would be the most valuable, for it had the castle and the best arable lands. That portion would go to the daughter who answered a question most to his liking. So he said, "Daughters, I have decided to step down from the throne. You can see this map, the divisions of the kingdom into 3, one for each of you. The one with the castle will go to the one who loves me the most." When Cordelia, the youngest, heard this, her heart quailed within her. He faced Goneril, his oldest daughter, and said, "Goneril, my eldest, how much do you love me?"
"Oh, Father, I love you more than all the gold and jewels in your treasury."
"Very well spoken. I know how much you love those jewels in the treasury." "And you, Regan, how much do you love me?"
"Oh, Father, I love you more than Goneril. I love you more than all the gold and jewels in all of the treasuries and all the kingdoms of the world."
"Very good, Regan. And now, Cordelia, my youngest, what do you have to say for yourself?"
"Nothing, Father."
"Nothing?"
"Nothing."
"Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again."
"How have my sister's husband if they say they love you all?"
"Well, then, you, being unmarried without a husband, love me best of all."
Cordelia, torn by pity for her father and anger at her sister's lies, said, "Father, I love you like bread loves salt."
"Like bread loves salt."
"Like bread loves salt."
"Like bread loves salt. What sort of treason is this?"
And then the king stepped forward, took the map of the kingdom, tore it in half, gave one half to Goneril, the other half to Regan, and said,
"I only have 2 faithful daughters. If this traitor is found within the bounds of this kingdom by midnight tonight, she shall be hung and her flesh left for ravens and wolves. Cordelia, I will never see your face again. Never, 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 never." "Come, Regan, Goneril, we have much to discuss about the peaceful transition of power." And off they went. Cordelia, without hesitation and without any preparation, left the castle and fled across the moor. "You better run, little Princess Cordelia. You better run to save your life. Run, little Princess Cordelia, 'cause your daddy's hound's gonna be on your trail by midnight tonight." What a question, you thought, when he asked it. "Which one of you loves me the most?" "Like bread loves salt," was your answer. "But not like butter loves toast. No, no, not like butter loves toast." And she ran towards the setting moon, towards the west. When she came to a marsh, she trudged through the marsh to confound the dogs following her scent. On the other side of the marsh, she plucked reeds and rushes and wove for herself a cape and a cap of rushes. Then she took mud and smeared it on her face to hide her beauty. And then she headed west again, just as she heard in the distance and then the hounds. You better run, little Princess Cordelia. You better run to save your life. For your daddy's hounds are on your trail. It's past midnight tonight. She ran, and when she knew she had passed the boundaries of her father's kingdom, she ran until she came to a castle that she was never seen before, and she fell exhausted at the door of the scullery, and she slept. She was awakened by a voice. "Well, what have we got here? A little swamp being drug from the swamp. Are you human, creature?" "Born of a woman, but cast out by my father." "Well, he is a wise man to get rid of such a one as you. Oh, what brings you here to the castle of our queen and her son, the prince?" "Oh, sorrow and hunger and thirst and the need for shelter." "Well, you won't find any of that here unless you are willing to work for it." "I am not afraid of work." "Well, what kind of work do you do? Do you sew?" "I wove this cape and cap." "Very well. Do you cook?" "I know a good recipe for a healthy soup." "Do you bake?" "I know several recipes for bread." "Do you clean? From the looks of you, say not." We don't need a cook. We don't need a baker. We don't need a weaver. We do need someone to wash the pots and pans. Do you think you can do that?" "I will do whatever is necessary to make my way." "Well, then make your way toward those crusty pots and pans. There's the scrubbing brush. Take off your cape." "Oh, I'd rather leave it on."
"Oh, well, suit yourself." I suppose you have done that. Suit yourself, haven't you? You've sort of suited yourself. But what is your name?"
"I have no name now."
"Well, then we will call you after your fashion. Rush Cape. Rush Cape, you can get some straw and put it in a pile and sleep on it in a corner of the scullery. Now get to work." And Rush Cape got to work, scrubbing the pots and pans until her hands were raw. And as time went on, she became well loved by all the staff of the scullery because of her kind heart and her willingness to help anyone who needed the help. One day, the scullery was all abuzz with some news. "Oh, Rush Cape, have you heard? The queen is having balls for her son, 2 balls in a row, tonight and tomorrow night. The son is of marriageable age, and so she wants to introduce him to all of the princesses from all the realms around. And she has said that we, the scullery staff, can come after all of the dinner things have been cleared. Won't that be wonderful?"
"I suppose."
And after everything was cleared, the cook said, "Well, Rush Cape, it's time to go to the ball."
"I don't think I'll go. I'm a little tired. I'll just stay here and rest."
"Well, suit yourself," as you have done. And off they all went, except for Rush Cape. But as soon as the scullery was empty, she walked to the door, opened it, and ran down the hill to the spring. There she took off her cape and her cap. She washed her face, brushed her hair, fluffed out her princess garments, and she went to the ball. "Who goes there?" said the guards at the gate with their halberds. But when they saw the beautiful princess' face, they pulled their halberds back, and she passed between. She went into the room, and there everyone turned and looked and saw her. The prince came down from his throne, walked over to Rush Cape, took her hand. "May I have this dance?" "Yes," said Rush Cape. And they danced, 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 and they danced through the night, and they danced, and they danced. It was love at first sight, and they danced, and at sharp midnight she disappeared. No one knew where she went.
"Oh, Rush Cape, you should have come last night. It was wonderful. A princess from an unknown realm has come, and I think the prince is in love with her. But she disappeared at midnight, and there is another ball tonight, and perhaps she will come back. I hope so. I know the prince hopes so. Will you come?" "Oh, I don't think so. I'm a little bit tired." But after they had left the scullery, she went down to the spring, washed her face, brushed her hair, fluffed out her garments, and went. The guards were ready to see her come, and there was the prince standing in the doorway with something in his hand. He took her hand and slipped a ring on her finger, and they danced, and they danced, and they danced through the night. And they danced, 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 and they danced until deep midnight, and then she disappeared. Oh, Rush Cape, you should have seen the face of the prince when she disappeared this time. He has sent out ambassadors and heralds to find out where she went, and if she is not found, I don't know what the prince will do. He is in love. And she wasn't found, and the prince began to grow ill. Day by day, he grew paler and paler. Physicians were called, but no one could find a cause for the disease, so there was no cure. And so it was that one day the cook said, "Rush Cape, when I first met you, didn't you say something about knowing a recipe for a healthy soup? Now might be the time." "I'll do what I can," said Rush Cape. And she made her healthy soup. And when the bowl was full and hot and ready to be delivered by a maid to the prince's sick room, she took something from within her cape, a special ingredient, and plopped it in the soup. The soup was taken to the sick room, and the queen fed the soup to the prince, spoonful by spoonful by spoonful. With every spoonful, color came back to his cheeks. And when, with the final spoonful, the ring was discovered, he sat up in bed. "Mother! Oh, it is my ring! Whoever cooked this soup will know where my love is. Summon them." And so Rush Cape was summoned, and when she appeared in the doorway, the prince recognized her, even in her cape of rushes and dirty face. He leaped from his bed, and they danced, and they danced, and they danced round the bed, and they danced, and they danced, and the prince to her said, "Will you marry me?" And she said, "Yes." The wedding was magnificent. There was dancing, but she didn't leave after at midnight. And the prince lived happily ever after, but not Rush Cape, for there was a weight on her shoulders which no one really understood. But every day she would go to the tops of the parapets of the castle and look toward the rising sun, the direction from whence she had come. One day her vigil was rewarded when there on the path, casting a long shadow, was a frail old man with brambles in his hair and beard, muttering something to himself. And as he got closer, Rush Cape heard him say, "Never, never, never." She sent 2 manservants out to bring the stranger in, that he might bathe and be clothed, so he would be ready for dinner that night. And then Rush Cape went to the scullery and spoke to the baker, handed him a recipe. "But, Your Majesty, I don't think this is going to work at all. Without that ingredient, I don't even think this bread will rise. I don't think so." "Well, do the best you can." "All right, Your Majesty, I will do the best you can." And the bread was made and delivered to the table for dinner. The stranger was brought in, mumbling to himself, not recognizing anything around him, seated next to Rush Cape, the princess, sat down and he began to eat. He ate heartily. It looked as if he had not really eaten in some time, but when he took a morsel of the bread into his mouth, he spit it out and roared, "Are you trying to poison an old man? Are you trying to insult me with this bread? This bread has no salt!" And with that, the madman's mind cleared, and he knew who he was and what he had done, and he began to cry, "Never, never, 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 Father? Who calls me Father? Who mocks me with this name? I had 3 daughters once. 1 I banished, and 2 have banished me, and now I have nothing. Nothing will come of nothing. Cordelia, is it you? It is I. Oh, Cordelia, can you ever forgive me?" "Yes, Father, of course. Can you forgive yourself?" And the 2 of them embraced, and they cried, and they cried, and they cried. And then the stories began of her banishment and adventures in the scullery and the ballroom, and his adventures being banished by his daughters. And then the laughter began. They laughed, and they laughed, and they laughed through the night. They laughed, and they laughed, and they held their sides tight. Laughed, and they laughed, and they laughed, happily ever after.
Thanks for joining us for a little story from the Appleseed.